Lovely, thank you. Okay, good evening everybody and welcome to the March meeting of Rayne Parish Council. It's been a whole year since we've met in person. It was the last meeting we met in person was March last year, so I feel we've done rather well, so yeah. Sarah, do we have any apologies for absence, please?
No, Chair, we have no apologies for absence. And if I can just confirm who's present, please.
Yes, please.
So I have Councillor Mrs. Anne Hooks, Tom Agata, Mike Eldred, Trevor Rippingale, Russell Davis, Paul Willis, Grace Meehan, Karen Spencer, and Cecilia Merton.
Just in time.
Just there. Fantastic, thank you. And can I have the declarations of interests for tonight's meeting, please? Councillor Agata. Thank you. Councillor Davis.
21/170 ECC Minerals and Waste.
Thank you. And Councillor Merton.
21/170 EEC Minerals and Waste, and 21/171.1 Windy Croft, who is next door but one neighbour.
Thank you. Any other declarations? No. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Can we consider the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of February? Does anyone have any questions to raise from them, or can we pass them as a true account of that meeting? Councillor Eldred? Proposed, and Councillor Meehan as a seconder. Thank you. Moving on to the public forum, we do actually not have anyone here from the public forum, but I do believe we do have people watching on the YouTube link as well. So actually, that's one thing I always forget to say, that this meeting is being recorded and that it's also being live streamed to YouTube. So I should always remember that. Sarah, I need it on big block letters on the agenda that I need to say it, because I always forget it. But yeah, welcome to people that are watching us on the YouTube link as well this evening. So we'll move on to our district and county councillor reports. Councillor Butland, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Chairman. One thing generally from Essex County Council, we had the budget meeting last week. You probably will have heard that there will be an increase of 1.5% in the care side of the budget, but 0% increase for general services. I suppose some of the key things, there's £1 million that the county are putting towards green initiatives, which hopefully will link with £500,000 that we as a district are putting in, and Paul can talk more about that in due course. The main local thing though, Madam Chairman, is that you and I and together with Sarah, we met following the last meeting to talk about the problems at the Perkins roundabout, etc. We subsequently agreed what would go forward. I put that in, but I also took the opportunity of having a direct conversation with Councillor Bentley, and you will see he sent me an email which I forwarded on to Sarah to say he would ask that a sort of detailed inspection was done. I think they have started on that at the moment, but I think there is more to be done, but at least it's well on the agenda, and hopefully we'll be able to take that forward. And the final thing is, in the budget next year, they are continuing with the community grant system, which or locality grants, which the council have. So whoever is the county councillor post May will have a £10,000 which they will be able to use in their division. There wasn't a great uptake from Rayne this year. There was some, the village hall and some on the Flitch Way. But just to bear in mind that there will be some funds available next year as well. That's me, Chairman, unless there are any questions.
I'd just like to say thank you for your help and assistance with the Perkins roundabout issue. We have heard from a resident that a gully lorry had been to the area and had washed out gullies and had tried to make the water flow. But I think they were told that yes, some CCTV camera footage was going to be required and what have you. So it does seem that yes, the work has started, and let's hope it continues and they can like do what they're going to say and hopefully find out what the issues are.
But we can identify the problem, and then we'll know how long it might take to get it resolved. Yeah,
definitely. Thank you. The other thing that I'd like to raise actually is I've actually been trying to log a very bad pothole at the end of Capel Road and on the junction of Capel Road and Shelford Road. And every time I'm on the county council website, and I'm doing it via an iPad, so I'm doing it through Safari. Every time I try and load a picture of it, because obviously the situation allows you to load a picture, it crashes and then sends me back to the beginning again. So I haven't actually been able to log this pothole. And the little feedback thing did pop up to say, you know, how's it going type thing. And I said, well, it hasn't. It isn't. I don't know if this is something that it, you know, does happen a lot, or whether it's just because I'm trying to do it from a tablet. I don't know, but there does seem to be an issue because I think obviously having a photo with reporting a pothole obviously gives you know a lot more detail.
I haven't heard of that before, but I'll take that up. Have you eventually managed to get it logged or not? If not, I was going to say send me the photo and I'll write it in. Okay,
yeah, I'll do that because
okay.
Yeah, I've tried about 3 or 4 days apart thinking that it might rectify itself, but yeah, I'll send you the details, Cut, if you don't mind.
Fine. And at the same time I'll make inquiries and say that you weren't able to get it on using the system.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, will do.
Could I ask a question, please, Councillor Butland?
Yes, by all means.
It's probably not so much of an issue now because we're still in lockdown, but I was curious to find out about the town centre. I know the work on the repaving has stopped, and I saw something on Facebook that said it had gone out to tender again.
I made a statement at council last Monday. It was a very tightly scripted statement based on legal opinion, and I cannot make any other comments at this moment. And as I said on the Monday, we will make more when it is due. But I don't normally stick to scripts, but I was told in no uncertain terms I must not say anything more outside of that at the moment. But the work will be completed and we'll go ahead. But I can't say anything more than that.
Okay, thank you.
As soon as I can, I'll certainly make sure, you know, well, there'll be a press statement as well once we're in a position to do more.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Councillor Butland? No, thank you. Councillor Eusden then, please.
Good evening, everybody. Just 2 or 3 little local things. Firstly, you will be aware of a family who had some neighbour conflict that's been going on for some time and has involved all sorts of agencies. That is now resolved, thankfully, and the family have been offered and accepted alternative accommodation in another part of the district. So I'm not sure if they've moved yet or if they're in the throes of moving, but the issue is resolved and they have or are being moved away. So hopefully they can settle down to normal life. So that was good. I was pleased that that's actually come to a good conclusion. Just a quick update on the Gilded Terrace appeal. I had an email today saying when it was, and I forwarded it to Sarah because I wasn't sure who'd got it and who hadn't, because I didn't receive it and it was forwarded to me by another councillor. So I thought I'd forward it to you just in case, but I'm sure you've got it already. I'm sure also you're aware the local plan section 1 was approved at council, which means that we can now move on to section 2 as quickly as we can get a planning inspector to hear it. My understanding is that we won't need additional sites for section 2. It looks as if we have enough, even though apparently our 5-year housing land supply is now less than it was due to the adoption of section 1, which I must admit I didn't really understand the technical whys and wherefores, but I accept that the people who issue it do, and but that doesn't leave us in any worse position. We don't need to go for additional sites, I'm told, so that's all good news. The continuing conglomeration of traffic problems with Gigaclear and flooding and all the rest of it, I haven't yet managed to find anybody at ECC who is happy to talk to me about joined up thinking and looking at something overall, but I'll keep trying and I'll update you as and when I find anybody. I have several other things which I've written, and I won't go through them because I know you're going to be pressed for time. So what I'll do is I'll forward it to Sarah and Sarah can circulate it. But I will just mention a couple of things. I'm sure you're aware that Braintree District Council agreed on its budget at council on Monday, and that there'll be no increase in our section of it. So added to counties, no increase apart from the 1.5% for adult social care, that should help residents. And obviously we are aware that residents have suffered, some of them quite badly during the pandemic, so it should help. And although there will be the council tax freeze, all of our services should be delivered to the same high quality as they always are, and the freeze shouldn't affect any of the plans we have. They're all going to go ahead as planned, and funding has been secured for the councillor community grant again for the coming year. So I won't have quite as much as the county councillor by a fairly big margin, but I haven't got so many people to share it among. It's swings and roundabouts. So there will be money available. If you've got any local schemes, you need to let me know. That will start in April. Though I'm not sure how we're affected by the elections, although I'm not involved in the election. But I suspect that the grants will be held over until the new councillors are elected in the various vacancies and so on. So it may be that we won't be spending the money until after April, but I don't think that that's too much of an issue. I think that's, we are, as Graham said, putting 500,000 to support Braintree District Council's climate strategy. And there was some discussion on Monday night's council meeting about whether we should be taking money out of elsewhere to pay for planting trees and the like. And we're fully in favour of planting trees, but there is a climate group who are studying the best ways forward for some joined up thinking on climate strategy, because it's not just about planting trees, there's a whole raft of other things involved, and that group involves people in the community, schools, workplaces, councillors and private individuals. So we are waiting for that group to report before we decide how best to spend the money. But I have no doubt the money will disappear very quickly once the schemes get to go ahead. And it's very nice to see that Essex County Council are chipping in £1 million as well, because every little helps, as they say. So I think that's all that I'll go through now, unless anybody's got any questions. I don't think there are any local issues outstanding that I haven't mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I mean, the one thing I would like to bring up, and actually is probably with both of you, district and at county level, obviously, is the issues that we've had in the village with Shelford Road being closed, with GigaClear doing its work. Obviously, we did have the unfortunate situation, obviously, with the burst water main in the street, which obviously just totally compounded the issue, and GigaClear had to stop their works, left it in a very unsafe position over the weekend, and after that weekend they did come and rectify it, and obviously they've had to wait for another permit to start the work again, which has then started again today, which has then started, you know, lots of comments on Facebook threads about the situation. Obviously it's not ideal to have a main road from one side of the village closed as it is, and obviously we're getting asked lots of questions why it can't be done under traffic lights. Obviously we are aware that it's down to Essex County Council that releases those permits, and obviously they deem it to the road too narrow to be able to cope with a traffic light system. But it would be really nice if we could, like Paul has intimated tonight, is trying to get some joined up thinking with when the permits now are released for a road works like they are, that the parish council, the people that live in the village, have some kind of like say in how it goes forward. And obviously the knock-on effect is that, you know, we have a 7-mile detour, but obviously everyone knows that Pod's Lane is there. It's not the diversion route, but everyone is using it, and the road is now, or the lane is completely rutted, it's muddy. I believe there was a car crash along there. We've had massive lorries coming down it. Now, a few years ago, we asked whether that could be a quiet lane, and we applied for it. But obviously, Highways panel didn't have the funding to do that. Obviously, I think it was advertised last week that Highways panel is having a nice cash injection boost as well. So would you support us in being able to, you know, help make Pod's Lane a quiet lane? And going forward, when Shelford Road, you know, is shut, what else can be done to protect lanes like Pod's Lane?
Do you want to go first, Graham?
Well, I was just going to say,
You're
there is
muted.
such a queue of lanes. You're probably talking about 6 or 7 years, but you know, I've got to be realistic. There is one going through this year, which is in Water Lane in Shalford, but there's a whole queue of places, and I'm not sure how much designation of a quiet lane actually achieves. Once, you know, it doesn't change the speed limits. It doesn't stop the volume of individual vehicles, unless that's got a separate weight restriction, etc. I just wanted to sort of forewarn you that it would take us no reason why it shouldn't go forward. I'm quite happy to support it, but being realistic, it will take some time to get that designated as a quiet lane.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just quickly ask?
Yes.
I think Pod's Lane was classed as a protected lane, but I don't really understand quite what the difference between a protected lane and a quiet lane is, because you're still going to get the same problem. You know, we still got like traffic jams. I've had people queuing to get down Pod's Lane from the top of the road, from Dunmow Road. So I just don't see what difference a quiet lane and a protected lane makes, quite frankly.
I think to add to what Graham said about the quiet lane, we've got one going through in Sailing, or trying to go through in Sailing, and it's been approved. It's been going on for several years to get to this stage, and it's all come to a stop because there's no ability to do public consultation, and you cannot, we have checked, but you can't do the public consultation in any other way. It has to be physical public consultation with meetings in a public place, so a village hall type of thing. Okay. So that stopped it dead. I don't know how long it's going to be before it gets going again, and whether the funding will still be available when it does get going again. And again, like Graham, I mean, I read the leaflet that was produced on quiet lanes, and I really can't see what it does apart from put up 2 signs, one at each end, saying it's a quiet lane.
Exactly.
It doesn't stop cars going down there, or trucks, or anybody else.
That's precisely my point. I don't see what it gains by being a quiet lane, apart from a sign.
I mean, as you know, I mean, I live in Bardfield, and we have lanes like Pod's Lane round the back through Waltham's Cross that lead to Finchinfield that suffers the same fate as Pod's Lane every time there's a problem on either Bardfield Bridge or Finchinfield Bridge. And the traffic goes down there, and you see trucks heading down there, and you think, oh boy, you're going to be in trouble in a minute. And, you know, the next day you go down and you see huge chunks of the verge churned up where the trucks have gone through and all the rest of it. And I mean, short of, but even if you put road closed up on Pod's Lane when you've got the diversions in, that won't stop them because they just drive round the road closed signs. So
it is such a problem. It really is, and I don't think there are any definitive answers.
No,
but it would be nice, you know, to have a little bit of joined up thinking, and perhaps, you know, coming down to parish level when there is going to be a significant road closure on how it's dealt with. So, you know, residents can be warned, or, you know, we could see if Pod's Lane, you know, could officially be shut as well, although that wouldn't be popular because obviously because of the amount of detour. But it would be nice going forward if there was something, you know, some joined up thinking.
Well, I think it's something that in this part of Essex is suffered by a lot of villages, because a lot of the lanes are single track and the diversions are long. I mean, when Finchinfield Bridge eventually gets replaced, the diversion is something like 22 miles. You know, and you know, are people going to do that? No, they're going to dive down all these single track lanes. And I mean, we had buses and cars colliding round the back of Sandford, trying to get round little tiny lanes that lead out into Cornish Hall End. You know, well, it's crazy.
It's not ideal, is it?
And the roads, you have to close them, but you have to do something that says, if you go down there, you will be prosecuted, you know, and unfortunately that only comes with something like one-way traffic, which would be incredibly unpopular, I should think, with locals. But I don't know what's, you know, maybe the answer is to try, when we're allowed to meet publicly again, maybe the answer is to get those involved to meet up in Rayne and to do a walkabout like they've done on other issues in other villages, and say, well, look, you know, this is our problem, this is our problem, and this is our problem. Can we have some thoughts and some, you know, I don't know, a brainstorming session or something that says how we fix this, even if the fix is when that's shut, so is this. You know, and we actually put a physical barrier across so nobody can get down it. I don't know, but you know, we're not going to achieve anything on Zoom, I don't think. So I think we're going to have to accept the fact that it's going to be when we can physically meet again, and we need to encourage someone from Highways to come down, meet with the parish council, and I think somebody you know, I don't know, maybe from the parking partnership or the utilities, and certainly somebody like GigaClear, because it seems to me that GigaClear are overrunning. You know, I mean, I think they're going to be there by the time we are up for election again in 2023.
Well, they haven't made themselves very popular within the village, and I'm sure it's probably county-wide as well, unfortunately. Yeah,
but they must be losing customers hand over fist, because their work rate is appalling, absolutely appalling.
Councillor Agatha,
you're muted. Don't know.
Well, if I can come in, John, utility companies and this really are a law unto themselves on this. I mean, I will say this for GigaClear, when they were doing the work here at Great Notley, they were absolutely superb and really put the stuff back first. Because mind you, they were doing it on pavement, but they actually put the herringbone pavement better than it was before they took it off. So that was really quite advantageous. On the general thing, I mean, this is a one-off here. On the general thing of the problems regarding Rayne, I'm quite happy. I did it with Great Bardfield, where I got Kevin Bentley, the chairman of the parking partnership, and 2 of the senior officers out, and we walked around Great Bardfield and identified some of the key issues. I'm quite happy to see if that can be done. I don't think there's time to do it before we go into Purda on the 19th of March, but certainly, you know, post that, happy to do that and see whether we can get something similar for Rayne in terms of the resilience, really, when something goes wrong.
That'd be fantastic.
Moment, we've got a combination of some one-off things, the weather and everything else. It's you know, there will always be problems when you get 3 or 4 things coming together. But I mean, there are some other issues in Rayne which I think would benefit from that approach.
That'd be really great. Yeah, that'd be fantastic, Graham. I think it's, you know, overdue and could be done. So thank you.
Okay. I mean, Bardfield Parish Council found it very useful and very useful.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay. Before we move on, any other questions for our district and county councillors before we move on? No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Graham and Paul, for attending tonight. Really appreciate your time. Thank you. Okay, moving on to roads, transport and public safety. I mean, obviously, we've already kind of like touched on the whole Shelford Road, the street, Pods Lane saga. So I don't think we need any more mention of that. And if there's anything else some councillors do wish to add. We've obviously already mentioned about a massive pothole at the end of Shelford Road, end of Capel Road, that I've been trying to log unsuccessfully. Anything else around the village? Councillor Willis?
Well, sort of similar vein, actually, really, to what you've just found. I've sort of got a thing about the road signs just don't seem to go away. I mean, we've still got the closures in up at Perkins at the moment, even though the road's clearly not closed there. I did try to report on the website, but I couldn't find a way of doing it, to be honest. You know, somebody to take away the signs. There's no need for those signs to be there anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not the people that do the work that come and put the signs out. It's like another contractor, isn't it? So half of them seem to always get left behind, or they don't talk to each other about when they do need picking up, which seems.
Well, last week they were laying in the road, weren't they? I mean, they were flat on the ground. People were driving around them.
Yeah.
They shouldn't. They don't need to be there. I just don't understand why somebody can't just come and collect them. You know.
In an ideal world. Anything else?
Yeah. No, that was it really. Just a general moan on that one as well, really.
Thanks, Paul. Anyone else? No. Okay, thank you. Moving on to Stansted Airport, I haven't heard there's been no emails or anything about the airport. So I think there's nothing to add to that one. Policing issues. Again, it's all reasonably quiet on that front. If there's anything to report, Councillor Willis.
Well, I was just going to ask if anybody had any idea why we had such a massive presence of police in Rayne yesterday.
No, but I had the Braintree and Whittam Times email me, the same reporter that did the Perkins one. Now that she's got my email address, she asked me if I knew, and I said no, I don't. Sorry.
Nobody seems to have come up with any reason why we had 12 police cars.
I'm sure if it could have been released or if it was a major issue, you would have heard about it. So.
I mean, that was pretty major.
Well, yeah, but obviously there's reasons why the information hasn't been released, isn't there?
Wasn't even on local news, was it?
No. So
a bit under the radar.
Okay, moving on to administration. The clerk's report. Sarah, have you got anything to add since you loaded up your report?
Nothing further really to add. Thank you, Chair.
Councillors, do you have any questions regarding the clerk's report? Okay, another busy month as always. Okay, moving on to policies. I propose to move them all on, so I get my teeth in properly, move them on block, apart from the memorial policy, which we will touch on when we talk about the Ashes Wall later on. Just to go through standing orders have been, these have all been reviewed at either C&D meetings or finance meetings. Standing orders, obviously there might be an ALC update that comes after the what was the parish council, can't think of its name now, after
in Cheshire,
yeah, Jackie Weaver situation. I mean, I guess that there may be some changes to standing orders, maybe from that fallout, but at the moment standing orders remain the same, and there's nothing to add or change. The grant policy was looked at by finance, and all it's had is its dates changed for this current financial year. Data breach had didn't require any updates or changes, and the same with the subject access review. So I propose, can we propose that those 4 policies are moved on block? Councillor Spencer and Councillor Meehan, thank you. With the memorial policy, at this point, I will just say that the only changes that have been made to the memorial policy, which is what we was going to propose for tonight, was the prices of the benches to be removed, because obviously I think they're going to have to be price on request. And also I know Celia, when we looked at it, when we changed the wording, creosote was mentioned, and that's been taken out and amended. So the policy as it stands now will probably be able to go, but we need to talk about it, including Ashes Walls. So that's why we can't move that one just yet. Okay, moving on to health and well-being. Mike, have you got anything to update regarding health and well-being? You're muted.
It's because I've not said anything.
Unlike you.
There we go. No, not in this section. I have something to mention on health and wellbeing, but that comes up in a different section, which would be more appropriate then. No, not to report at this moment in time.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I think I'll just do a little quick update on the duty counsellor scheme. That's still working. We've had 2-3 phone calls and a but yeah, other than that, I think it's all working fine and everything. Sarah, did you want to go back to standing orders? Sorry.
Sorry, just a quick point. I just wanted to advise councillors that we're still waiting for guidance from the government on continuing after May, how we meet, whether it's virtually or in person. So that may require an update to the standing orders, but obviously we need to wait for that to come through from the National Association of Local Councils and cascade down through the channels to us. But that is something that we have to wait for. So we can't put anything in place at the moment. There is some debate as to whether you can include it in your standing orders, but as it's not been changed by legislation, then we can't at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Sarah, I missed you waving your arm or whatever, sorry. Do we have any circulation and correspondence?
No, Chair, no, we don't think we need to bring anything up under that matter.
No. Okay, thank you. Moving on to Essex Minerals and Waste, I think Sarah's going to talk us through an email that arrived last week.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to advise you, I did put it in your folders, but you may not have been able to see it, that I had an email from the Restoration and Mineral Planner at Ingerbourne Valley, who are the new operator taking over from Tarmac, just advising that they are starting their archaeological fieldwork next Monday, which is a requirement of condition 12 of the planning permission. It doesn't mean that they are going to start any works and it's not a commencement of development, but it's just if any residents or councillors see any people on the site, and for anybody who's not aware, this is at the back of Broadfields Farm off of Dunmow Road. So it is quite possible that you may see some equipment arriving to do some trial trenching from Tuesday next week. So just to be aware of that.
I wonder if that's worth doing a social media post about, because otherwise I think we might get people questioning, and we might as well be proactive and say this is what's happening, and we do know about it, and it's not the work starting before people get themselves all stirred up.
I could put that on the dedicated page and then share it across the other pages as well.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Moving on to planning applications. The first planning application is a 2-storey side, single-storey rear and single-storey front porch extensions following demolition of garage and outbuildings at Windycroft, Dunmow Road. This property came to council probably a couple of months ago, and I think they obviously pulled the first application, and then this is a revised application. Any thoughts, councillors?
Unless there's any neighbour comment, I'm quite happy to propose no comment.
Ditto.
Yeah, there's no other public comments on the planning portal, and I think, yeah, as we were quite happy with it and said no comment last time, I'll second Councillor Rippingale's proposal as no comment if everyone else is in agreement. Yeah, brilliant, thank you. The next item, the new road application has been left on the agenda in error, so that's not required to be discussed tonight. The next application is a first floor rear extension and loft conversion with a rear dormer extension and installation of roof lights to front roof slope at 41 Shelford Road. Does anyone have any? Councillor Eldred?
Yeah, move.
I had a look at this only because I noted it came up earlier a few months ago, and it was refused by Braintree District Council. So this is a re-application. When I initially saw it, I actually emailed Sarah and said I couldn't see much difference in it. There are some slight differences to the loft, which alters one window, but not greatly. So Braintree District Council weren't happy last time. I don't know whether there's been conversations, I presume there has, between the planners and designers for the changes that they will probably be happy with. But just to note, it is a slight change from a refusal from last time, if people haven't looked at it.
I must admit I hadn't picked up on that. I knew the Windycroft one was, but I hadn't twigged that this one was. But I don't think we had any comment on it last time, did we?
No, I don't think so.
No, it was purely Braintree District Council that refused it because they said it was too big a build, basically. And there is now a reduction of one roof light, as far as I can see. But I don't think it makes any different to our no comment that it did last time. It was just to comment to the council that it was a refusal, and we are going through it again. So.
Okay, thanks, Mike. To be fair, I mean, I'm happy to propose no comment again, because obviously, to be perfectly clear. I mean, I don't think there's much that we can. Obviously, BDC, planning had a reason to refuse it, but they're the ones that decide these planning applications, not us. So we're happy to go no comment.
Yeah, I would second no comment. I just think the council needed to be advised that it was a refusal.
Okay, brilliant, lovely, thank you. And then moving on to an application to note is a permitted development rights inquiry at Longfield Station Road. And then planning results, application for approval of details reserved by condition 16 of approved application of land at Lodge Farm Rayne Road. That's been permitted. Application for approval of details reserved by condition 3, joinery details of approval at Mounts Farm, Shelford Road. Part granted, part refused. Single story rear extension at Essex House, Fairy Hall Lane, that's been granted. And permitted development 3 Ruskins New Road, permitted development rights not removed. And then, oh no, there's more. Permitted development rights inquiry at Brayburn Hall, Barnard's Orchard, the street, permitted development rights removed, and the retention of a boundary fence at 2 Hants Lane, application permitted. So that is all our planning applications. Okay, moving on to the Ashes walls. There's several parts to this discussion, so please bear with us. I'm going to try and deliver. Once we get to the end of our discussions, we have the 3 resolutions to do and to decide on 2 resolutions and 1 for information about how we go about this. To start with, we're going to look at the tenders that we received. I'm sure councillors, you've all looked at the paperwork, but Sarah is going to share that document on the screen for us, as if by magic, hopefully. Thank you. Okay, we put out to tender to build the next 2 Ashes walls to carry on the circle that we already have. The tenders had to be in by the 22nd of February, and they were opened in the presence of myself, Paul Willis and Sarah. We did it through a meeting like this that is recorded, so the whole tender process has been carried out in the legal way, following our financial standing orders, the best way that we can during COVID, and our auditor is happy that we've done the process correctly. So we put out to tender to 5 different companies. 4 out of the 5 replied. So the first one is company A, and you can see there the breakdown of costs, totaling a sum of £4,985. Obviously we will be claiming the VAT back. And obviously it's obviously a good breakdown on each part. They've described their availability, and they've also provided their health and safety policy and insurance as requested. Company B, again, their quote has come in at £6,522 plus VAT. Again, brief description there on how they can undertake the work. There is no health and safety policy or insurance documentation supplied with the tender. Company C, as you can see, has a £12,250 tender. We're not sure if you see on the breakdown, they've got £4,700 for materials. It's abundantly clear in the tender information that we are supplying the bricks, so we're not quite sure that £4,700 worth of concrete and lime mortar is required. So that's a little bit of a query with this tender, but even if you took that away, you're still looking at £8,000. They did provide their health and safety policy and insurance policy. Company D said many thanks for the opportunity to quote, and unfortunately we're unable to provide a quote at this time. And then company E, again, they've done a small breakdown of how it will be, and the tender has come in at £5,270. They didn't provide a health and safety policy, but they have provided their insurance company details. So that is obviously the costs of tender. We have five different options, or 4 different options there of what we can do. To remind councillors, the bricks from Bulmer comes to £3,543. So whatever tender, if we agree to tender tonight, obviously we have the brick cost on top. The one thing that is different from previously, and with the document that was sent out to you last night on the background and history of the walls, obviously there's a big change in cost on the project from 18 years ago, which is only to be expected. But obviously last time we managed to dig the foundations in-house. We haven't got that capability at the moment, so the whole job went out to tender. So how do we, well, actually, does anyone have any questions on the tenders at this time? Councillor Agatha? I know we did ask for public liability. obviously we'd have to look, we would need to look at those, but it was asked that they did have public liability insurance, which is what that insurance is for. I can't remember what we asked.
Right, I think it legally has to be 10 million.
10 million, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, from not just generally knowing, I think it has to be up to 10 million. Otherwise, I don't think you can actually operate as such.
Okay.
Situations like that.
So going forward, if we want to look at, you can stop unsharing now, Sarah, if you want. It's easy to see you all. The costs that we have and what we have ring fenced already. Excuse me, I need to find my right piece of paper. No, because it's on this notebook. I've got two different notebooks, so do apologise. In our reserves towards this project at the moment, we have a the underspend that we agreed at council last year. That split the income from the plaques that we've already gained, the churchyard reserves that we're amalgamating, and we have £1,000 in the budget in next precept. That adds up to £4,632.50 if you want to be pedantic with the pence. So we have £4,600. Now, for the purpose of the exercise, for the ashes, for the document that councillors were sent out last night, obviously, if we went with the smallest tender, we're looking at £8,550 basically to complete that project, with obviously £4,600 ring fence. So we are looking at a shortfall of £3,900. There are different ways in which this can be funded. One was touched on in the document that was released last night, is that obviously we could look at recouping those costs via the plaques. We've done, Paul's done considerable research on the plaques and how much they cost in other places, and there is the possibility that we could propose that we could make more money on each plaque, which would then help to recoup the money and also then start to build up a fund going forward to maintain them, and or even possibly build the fifth wall in another 20 years time, so that the council in 20 years time doesn't have the same issues today with trying to find money where, you know, money hasn't been saved over the years. Many crematoriums and other places only allow plaques to be on their walls for 5 or 10 years, and it's actually leased. Our plaques are there for forever. You know, it's no one's going to say in 20 years time we need more room and let's, you know, hack them all off. That's not how our walls work, and if we proceed to, you know, to carry on, you know, it won't be that. So there is that financial gain that we can do, and I think the proposed increase, I think there was 2 proposed increases, and I don't think neither of them would be extortionate. Obviously that would be a slower process in regaining the money back, because obviously we've got to wait to sell the plaques going forward, but it is an option. It has been commented by that actually people may want to help donate money to the cause, that villagers feel strongly. We can't, as a parish council, I think, you know, Sarah, audit purposes and everything like that, you know, crowdfunding is not an issue. We can't have a Just Giving page and say, please help us build the ashes walls for the village. There's a lot of red tape for parish councils to do that, but there are people in the village that may like to help and donate towards the walls, which we could seek out, and the church have offered to help us with that situation if we wanted to go down that route too. The other issue is looking at our reserves. this is where it gets complicated, and I would apologise if I have to lean on Sarah and Paul for this. So we have at the moment, well, as we are near year end, the projected year end figure for our current account is £40,770 roughly, because obviously there's still some reconciling to do, but that's Sarah's best estimate. Within that bank account, we have, that's where our reserves are, and we have £15,000 for general reserves, and we have £21,901 in other specific ring-fenced reserves, which obviously the ashes wall, the £4,600 is in. So we have £36,000 of ring, or nearly £37,000 of ring-fenced funds. But what we also do have is a savings account that has been untouched for many years. In that, we have £34,000. Sarah has been clerk for the last 10, 11 years, Sarah, yeah. And money has not ever been withdrawn from that account. The only thing that's happened to that money is that where we had it in two different savings accounts at Barclays, when we amalgamated them together into one savings account when we went to Unitary Trust. A discussion for another evening is that perhaps the 15,000 general reserves is not quite enough, but that's something that for finance, I think Finance Committee will be looking into, to making sure that we have enough general reserves to go forward. But that still does mean that we have a good £30,000 of savings that are not ring-fenced reserves, that this project, or the remaining part of this project, could be funded by if councillors were minded to proceed. Obviously backed up with any increase or any, you know, even if we kept the plaques at the same price as they are now, we still do incur a profit to ring fence towards maintenance and building of further walls going forward. So that's the tenders, that's where we are financially, and our options on paying for the two walls. I'm sure you've all read the background history and all the other issues within the document from last night. The only other part that I would discuss, this is where the memorial policy comes in, is that it's like the memorial walls have kind of like slipped under the parish council's radar since they were built 18 years ago, and this will be rectified going forward. They have been provided by the parish council, and there's nowhere on our website or anywhere that we market or advertise that fact. So that will change, and with the church, obviously we will come to some wording for both of our websites going forward. The only query that the church have at the moment is how we would like to proceed, because they have been asked to just have a plaque and no ashes burial, and they would like clarification on how the council wants the walls to work in the future. I'm sure there's loads more points, and more points will probably come up within discussions. So let's open it up. Councillor Eldred.
Yes, good evening, thank you. I think everybody knows my views on the ashes wall. I think they are a fantastic thing. They are well used. I think they are an area of solace for people who choose to go down there. Part of my family are well represented in the walls. But I do have one issue, and that has just been raised by the chair, where the church might say that you do have to have your ashes buried there in order to have a plaque on the wall. My thought is this is a village being paid for by the village, by the council. There are lots of reasons why you might not want your ashes buried near the wall, but you might want a memorial there because it is exactly that. And I think we are confusing things by calling it an ashes wall. I think we are then calling it a memorial wall. I think we need to decide what we're going to do as far as that's concerned. I'm quite strongly against the ashes having to be buried there. And that's a very personal one, but I will tell you why. My father is buried in Skegness. I'm an only child. He's up there. I'm down here. I can't go and see him, but I would love him to be on that wall. I would find it awful if he wasn't able to, and that's because he has 5 great-grandchildren in the village who would like to go and see his name up there. I'm sure there are other examples of similar things. These walls are not for us. They're for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren to go and look at who has gone before. If there are restrictions involved, whether it be religion or anything else, I would find that very sad. Especially as we're talking spending a lot of village money on it, I think it should be open to all villages. That's opened the discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Meehan.
Just like to say I completely 100% agree with Mike. That's literally all I have in my locker right now. I think it's, you get into a whole different ball game if you have to have something buried there for precisely that reason. There may be somewhere that someone wanted their ashes to be that may not be accessible or easy to get to, and you need a place, or want and need a place to be able to visit close by, just to have a moment or anything like that. And I think if you restrict it to having to have your ashes buried there, I don't agree. I think it should be exactly that, a memorial wall.
Councillor Merton.
I agree. The thing is also, by the church saying that the ashes should be buried there, it's forcing people to, against possibly their religion. People might want their memorial there. They might be Jewish or Sikh or something else or whatever. And as Councillor Eldridge said, it's a memorial, and I think the church cannot insist that ashes be buried there. We're funding it. We call the tune. Sorry.
I just say the church aren't enforcing it. It's they have come to us to ask how the policy, because obviously when the walls were first built, that was what they were there for, to have the ashes buried with a plaque, because at 20 years ago, when this idea was in conception, there was nowhere for ashes to be buried. I think they were originally put around the edge of the churchyard, but no plaque or anything was allowed to happen. So the ashes walls were there, so people could have their ashes buried and then have a plaque, because obviously that wasn't possible before. So, and over time, the rules, so to speak. This is why this comes to fruition now, because it's something that we need to discuss policy going forward, and this is what will be going into our memorial policy, which is why we haven't agreed to memorial policy yet tonight. Well, we can't agree it tonight, but I need direction on how to proceed with our memorial policy, and obviously go back to the church saying, well, actually, the parish council actually now says, you don't have, if that's what we agree, that is it, yes, you don't have to have all your ashes buried there. You could just have, some, because some people like to scatter them, but you can also have some buried there.
No, but I think different religions.
There is the issue with different religions. Obviously, the church have an income from the burial of ashes, which obviously, if we were to go down that route, they would lose out on some donation, because they ask for a donation when the is dug. And obviously, if we turn it into memorial walls, they are going to fill up quicker as well. because obviously you'll probably just get a lot more people just doing plaques.
Mm.
It is also who is allowed to go onto that wall, because actually it is a Rayne wall for Rayne residents. So there has been where people have been living in the village all their lives and had to move out of the village to go into a care home or something, and obviously that, you know, they've, you know, been given permission to go on the wall still, or, you know, somebody that lived in the village all their life or had to move elsewhere or something. You know, we had to establish what is that Rayne connection that allows you to go on the wall as well, because I although I understand, you know, we can't just have somebody like from, you know, Bardfield who's never lived in Rayne all their life saying, well, actually I want to be memorial if they're nothing to do with Rayne, because they are for, you know, I believe that they're for Rayne residents and for Rayne people. Councillor Spencer.
Agree wholeheartedly with the points that Mike and others have made, but the point I wanted to make was to pick up on Councillor Merton's point about religion and so forth. If, given that this is a parish council memorial wall, if we were to insist on the ashes, then I think that would actually be discriminatory and would be a breach of all our standing orders, because we've said that we won't discriminate against people.
Okay, fair comment. Councillor Willis.
Yeah, I was just going to say really that the church, I mean, it has been made clear that the actual wall is available to everybody, regardless of religion. They have actually said that. So the point at issue is where is burying ashes or not burying ashes, and I guess it is in a churchyard. That's what you've got to consider. That's where the walls are. That's where they were built. So it's a bit difficult. I mean, but they have actually made it quite clear that there is no bar to which they have to. They can't have anything else, and we couldn't agree to anything else. Clearly, but they are free to everybody, regardless of their beliefs or non-beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if you have ashes buried, I mean, generally it's you know, Roman that carries out the service, and often he's asked, you know, for a non-religious service. And he can provide that, and equally if you wanted a celebrant to come and do that burial, you can as well. And I totally appreciate that this part of the discussion is totally totally emotive, and we all have very, very different, you know, thoughts on the process. That aside, the main thing is this is the future of the walls. We only have certain spaces left. So the main thing is I think first off is to actually, do we agree to to agree a tender? Do we agree to purchase the bricks? Do we agree to go ahead with this project with the financial situation that you have seen tonight? Because obviously the discussion that we've just had just now is pointless if we're not going to build the walls, because, you know, in 12 months time they're full up on the current pattern. Councillor Eldred.
You could go in reverse and say, unless we have an actual policy that we all agree to, we wouldn't build the walls anyway.
True.
And I would, and I'm being very serious, because unless we come up with something that I am happy with, I wouldn't vote for it. And I'm one of the biggest promoters of the memorial wall, probably within the council, and always have been. I went to the meetings down at the church with Roman and you know, Colin Miles and everything else, and heard what they had to say. I didn't like some of the things they had to say, but I was there and I fully appreciate what they say. But we are looking at a village project. I would only say that. But I do think I think we need to get this emotive thing sorted and through the council before we start agreeing money.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Rippingale.
On the point of cost, if part of the church's position is around lack of revenue, is it therefore wise to consider a plaque cost that gives something back to the church? Emoted point. For the lack of, obviously, the loss of income for considerable number of ashes not being buried there.
From an audit point of view, Sarah, is that feasible?
No, sorry, that wouldn't be permissible. We won't be able to give the church funds.
No.
I don't think we should if we're paying for the wall and everything else that goes with it. We're not getting any funding from the church or any contribution from the church, should I say. I know it is a parish council initiative, but we need to recoup those costs.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what our priority is to recoup the costs. The church has a lot of funding from a lot of other things. It does a lot of fundraising. It's had a huge grant. It's sold all its pews. I'm sorry. I just can't, you know.
We have to go down every avenue.
Yeah,
It's absolutely,
exactly.
absolutely fine.
Absolutely.
Pastor Willis, did you have your hand up, I think? Did you? No? Okay.
Yeah, I was sort of losing track of the meeting a bit. I don't know whether I'm just having reception problems, but still. I've got GigaClear as well. I still can't hear anything. But anyway, what I was going to, I sort of lost the thread of what I was going to say now. But obviously, we have to have clarity on this issue about the burial of ashes. We do have to have. I mean, we can't. I don't believe we can do anything unless we have clarity on that. Can you hear me? Or
yes,
Yes.
you can.
Is there any point in us voting at this moment in time as to how many people will be for a memorial wall as opposed to an ashes wall as a point?
I believe we're at that point. I think we've discussed it to.
Councillor
I have to duck out for 5 minutes.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Agatha, and then we'll have a vote. Okay. So who is in favour of keeping, or we're supposed to do it, who is in favour of changing the walls to a memorial wall that does not have to have ashes buried going forward? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I might as well. That's a unanimous decision then. So we haven't actually, as an agenda item, resolved that. So it's so that I can start writing the memorial policy. Obviously, I can let the church know, although I believe they're probably watching this evening as well. So that obviously that it is no longer enforced to have ashes buried when you have a plaque on the wall. Councillor Eldred.
I also think that how you're going to word it satisfactorily to being connected with the village, again, is a very difficult one. because if you word it one way, you're going to go and have to take a lot of names off that wall that are currently on there. There has been lots of precedents set by some of the people that are on that wall. And I'm just making you aware that I think you would need to be very, very careful as to what the qualification is as far as Rayne is concerned.
Yeah, and that's something that, you know, we will have to look into. And, you know, we are aware that, or I've been made aware that, you know, the rules have been relaxed or bent over the last few years, and clarification, you know, needed to be sought. So obviously that's what we will start doing while we
but just to qualify that, I'm saying that from a good way, because the one thing about Roman and the way he's dealt with it has been very sympathetic and incredibly empathic to anybody that has wanted to use the facility, and he has been brilliant with it.
And I think that, you know, that's the main thing. I mean, we've had an amazing working relationship, you know, with the church, and, you know, and actually this was discussed the other day that, you know, you don't often get that between PC and PCC. So I really hope that, you know, we can carry on having, you know, the great relationship, you know, that we do have. And, you know, they're appreciative of the parish council providing the walls, because obviously without the parish council providing the walls, there wouldn't be this facility within the village anyway. So I just, you know, I'm sure with discussions going forward, and we will, between us all, we will get the correct wording that both us and the church needs to go forward and move the walls and have them as to how villagers want them. So obviously with that now decided, we're now back to the finances and actually building these walls. So what do we think of the tenders, and what do you think of how we fund it? Councillor Meehan.
I think it's easy to look at sort of a tender and go, well, why are they charging so much less? Because I don't know if anyone else did, but I immediately went to, why are they only charging that then? However, if there's no sort of specific difference, we're getting the materials, so it's not an aspect of materials being subpar, etc. So the bricks we know are to the standard we need. If everyone has the same public liability, insurance, etc., I don't see a reason why we shouldn't accept was it A? Company A? Yeah. I don't see a reason why we shouldn't accept Company A, because like we said, we've laid out they have to have insurance, they have to have the public liability, they have to have a health and safety policy, etc., which they've shown us. I also think that the savings account, savings are there for a reason, and if they've not been touched and there is no other intended use for them, I think this would be a really good use for them. I think at the end of the day, the fact that it's been sat there for a while means that obviously nothing's had to come up, and that's brilliant. But it's not like we're taking half or all, or, you know, in reference, like sort of comparatively, it's a fairly minimal amount to take out of a savings account that has no earmarked way of using it. And so I think it would be, my vote would be for Company A, and to move it out from the savings account for those reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Meehan. Councillor Merton. You're muted.
Muted.
This be a perfect opportunity to apply for some part of the community grant?
Yes. I mean, obviously the £4,000 shortfall is the worst case scenario if there is no grants. So Councillor Butland and Councillor Hewson expect a nice begging letter from Rayne Parish Council in the next month or so. all joking aside, yes, and we always said that, you know, we knew we were going to be short anyway, so we know. So yes, the worst case scenario, as Councillor Meehan has suggested, and actually I agree with her proposal as well, is you know, the worst case scenario is that £4,000 comes out of that bank account. If in the meantime there are some grants that saves us £1,000 or £2,000 or something, the better the situation is.
Councillor Euston, if you have a form, please send it to me and I'll fill it in.
I don't think they've printed them for this year yet.
Just as soon as.
Get them ringing over to Rayne quickly.
Yeah.
Thanksy.
I'll have a word with Moira and ask her to get her finger out because we're ready to spend.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Has it occurred to you that if you've got a savings account, if it's anything like anything I've seen, you'll get hardly any interest on it, and maybe you could pay the cost of the plaques into the savings account to A, repay some of the capital that you're taking out, and B, to set up a fund for future maintenance and or future walls within the savings account, because it's then in a place that's safe and can't be interfered with.
Well, some of the ring fence funds that we will be using that is ring fenced from the plaques already, but it's not a great margin that we're profiting from at the moment. So, but yeah, some of it is ring fenced in that scenario already. So that would carry on with the new walls anyway.
The other thing that occurred to me, and it's probably none of my business, but with view of the speed at which the wall may fill up, I guess ultimately you would run out of places to build more walls. But have you considered the memorial wall and perhaps a book of remembrance, where, like a lot of the crematoria, you get the option of a plaque in the grounds, or you can have an entry very nicely done in italics and all the rest of it, put in a book of remembrance that's kept somewhere within the crematorium, but that doesn't mean that it has to be. But that could be a cheaper option that you could offer to residents so that their loved ones are remembered and there's a record of them within Rayne. And if it's just a nice, if you look at what sort of books they hold for that in crematoria, to give you an idea of it, and it could be a cheaper option and make the walls last a bit longer. Just a thought.
Thank you, Paul. I mean, we have looked at other options of what, I mean, ideally the concept plan of the walls is actually to have 5 walls, where the 5th wall will go, if it does ever go, is where a tree and a bench is at the moment. So people might be mindful to think, well, actually the tree is beautiful and the bench looks in place, because I think the 2 walls where we're going to put them now is actually going to almost finish it off lovely with the bench and the tree there anyway. So these might be the last walls we build. Who knows, the council in 15 years time can be dealing with that. But we do have an option of using the outside of the walls if push comes to shove after, you know, the next rotation. There are options, and obviously we can discuss that as years gone by, but I think for the moment is to work out. So I think I had a proposal for Company A and moving funds, the worst case scenario, the £4,000 from the savings account to pay the balance. I think Councillor Eldred seconded that idea. So are we all in agreement, and are there any more comments before we?
Sorry, the only thing about Company A, one of the last things they said were the foundations may need to be deeper after assessing the ground conditions. They haven't done that yet. which may mean an increase in price. Is there any consolidation percentage-wise either way that we're going to agree to if they meet something during it, building?
I suppose we're going to have a contingency of some description, because obviously with all projects, best will in the world, something will happen. I mean, that's the reason why the ashes walls are where they are, is because it's not suitable for coffin burials because it floods.
Yep.
which is why the ashes walls are where they are.
Yep.
So
it's just the one thing in that company A that stands out, the fact that, well, the good thing is that they've actually put it in there, that they think that the foundations need to be deeper than set. So
at least we know they've actually have been to site and have had a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, so would we propose that we accept tender A at for £4,985, but with an added £500 maybe for contingency? Sarah, is that acceptable?
Yes, that's fine with me. No, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, Councillor Meehan proposed,
Chair,
and Councillor,
sorry,
yes, sorry, yep.
I'm struggling with.
I think Paul's a little bit behind again.
I think he needs to ditch the Giga Claire.
Give up.
Struggling. Maybe can I suggest that Councillor Willis turns his camera off? Perhaps that would help until we need to share any more documents.
I am miles behind. I can't. I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to come off of this and come in.
I think he's coming out and going in again.
Else. I can't. I'm not contributing to this, and I can't get in properly.
Okay.
We'll let Paul get back in.
Chair, have you got the details of?
I've got 100 megabits. I'm showing 130.
Oh, there he's gone. He was behind, and then we lost him. Hopefully, he'll be able to log in successfully. Sorry, Chair. Did you want to, when Councillor Willis gets back in, did you want to confirm the name of the winning bidder?
Yes.
Thank you. You've got that information.
Yes. I see.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Had the right
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hopefully Paul will be able to get back in again in a moment. That's what Paul's always had. Oh, you're back
again. But I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone. I don't know.
Okay.
I've changed my broadband to the highest possible speeds I can get, but I don't know why it is.
Yeah,
I have no problem with Zoom or anything like that, but I just lose it every time.
Okay.
Crazy.
Was there anything you wanted to add before we?
Well, the only thing I was going to add was that if price is a consideration here, it's a little bit difficult to go with a quote where you're saying, well, yeah, that could cost a bit more if you accept your tender. If you see what I mean.
I only said that, Paul, because they're actually putting it out themselves.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not sure you could do that, really. I mean, you've got to have a price that's the price.
I think we need to agree that tender. If we're going to go with company A, £4,985. We agree that tender. We then agree the brick quote, but then also perhaps agree a contingency cost just in case any situation arises.
I'm just saying that if you're accepting a quote on the basis, or a tender on the basis there, and then the company reserves the right to increase it afterwards, it's hardly fair on some of the other quotes, is it?
I mean, to be fair, I mean, when they've said about the foundations, they haven't kind of like said that this is going to cost you any more, have they? Councillor Picton.
I think you need to bear in mind as well in terms of construction, because obviously that's the side of things my husband's in, so it does kind of come up from time to time, is whenever you're doing a new build of any form, even if one of the other companies that have quoted, say like the 6,000, they may then do a dig and then find actually unprecedentedly we need to do another £500 of work, so you would still potentially be in the same position having accepted a higher quotation from the second company, so to speak, whereas at least on company A they have highlighted that they do have that element of concern, and they're aware of it, and they're looking to resolve it before it becomes an issue.
Brilliant, thank you, that's good. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, just to echo that, from construction experience, until you actually get a digger on site and actually start going into the ground, it's very difficult, you know, to know what the ground's going to be like. You can even do drill tests, but you know, a metre away it could be a different type of soil, and you know, even with you know, a slightly higher quote, they may dig down a metre 1,500 and say we're going to have to go deeper, we're going to have to use more concrete, and that's going to be X. So I think with any type of groundwork, you've got to expect that that quote could change depending on the depth they've got to dig down and the amount of concrete that's got to be filled.
And any changes are going to, or extra costs are going to have to come back to full council anyway.
Yep, so they could end up digging and having to stop the job, and then we have to wait until we have another meeting to then vote on an increase in the cost.
Not so. Chair.
Yes.
I don't accept that at all, really. I mean, what's the point of a tender process if you're going to then accept a quote with the possibility that it might not be held, that firm might not be held? Surely that's the whole point of a tender process.
All I can say is from my experience of dealing with construction for the last 20 odd years is you can't always guarantee what the ground is like you're going to dig, and if they
well, it's up to them to make sure they know.
Yeah, but if they budget for say 3 metres of concrete and they dig the hole out and then they look at it and it's not going to be sufficient, what do you do?
All I can say is if anybody else had quoted a figure, all I can say is that I wouldn't be very happy if that the other person who'd given a lower figure said, "Oh, by the way, I want another £1,000."
It's quite likely with groundwork.
To be fair, though, when we accept this tender, or whatever tender we do accept, we will be referring to that figure, you know, so, you know, if we accept company A, we'll be saying, you know, we accept your tender of £4,985 plus VAT. That's the price.
Yeah, that's how we should play it. We shouldn't be talking about any other possibilities. Because to be fair, they haven't actually said that there'll be an extra cost for it. We've just assumed it, haven't we? It doesn't say it in the tender.
No.
I just think we ought to have a little bit in reserve just in case.
Yeah, and if we accept the tender at the price that they've given, that's the tender that we've accepted. Councillor Meehan.
I also I understand what Paul is saying in terms of, yes, you'd be annoyed if they then turn around and said, oh, it's X amount more, but equally he's not going, whoever is not going to know until they start the dig, and therefore that's when the things change. So you can't expect them to come out, dig down, and then say, oh, okay, yeah, it's fine, it will be that much, because they haven't been giving anything. So I think exactly that, when you're working with things like that, I think you need to accept that actually, unfortunately, sometimes it may not be possible to do what they wanted to do. Things may have to change, plans may have to change. And therefore, and I think it's a good idea to do it with a contingency, because exactly that, you can't expect them to come out, know absolutely everything if they're not even going to get the job.
100%.
Chair, I'm sorry, I don't accept that either. I'm not trying to be difficult here, right? But it's not just me who's going to be annoyed about this, okay? It's other people who have tendered.
Yeah, but Councillor Willis, this is a realistic thing that possibly might or could happen. We don't know, and it's the same for any company digging into the ground.
I'm not suggesting. I'm not saying I have an issue with putting a contingency. I'm not suggesting I have any issue with any of that. What I have an issue with is if I was an underbidder on this deal, I would not be happy that somebody an overbidder, somebody who's bid below me, got the job, and then went, oh, and by the way, it's going to cost more now. That doesn't sound quite right.
The problem is that they don't know what everyone else has offered, so they're not necessarily undercutting people to make a point. And equally, you can't. Oh, I've lost my train of thought now. No, that's gone. Yeah, you're not. You can't, no, that's gone. It's completely gone. Yeah, basically what I'm saying is that you can't assume that they're then going to go, okay, it needs to be this much more. And like Russell and Dawn have both said, in this industry and in this specific thing, that could happen on any single one of those companies that have put a tender out. But maybe like we go, oh, okay, well, actually, we'll go with company C that said £5,000 then, and then they might change their mind.
What I'm saying is the whole point of a tender process is to have a price that you are accepting as a contractual price.
I do understand.
Paul is right with that, Snow, and that's why that when we will reply to whichever company we are tendering to, we accept your price of £4,185. I think that's where it has to be and be left until it starts. And if there are issues with them having to, with the drawings with the plans are the same footings that are there already. So we've just, we've assumed that those footings are going to be suitable. And I suppose surely it's up to the company to swallow that extra cost because they've put a tender out.
That's my view, yeah.
It's not a quotation, it's a tender.
I don't know of many companies or groundwork companies that would swallow a loss because of the ground.
It's a tender.
I know,
Yeah,
but the problem
it's not
is,
gonna happen.
you're saying, I understand that it's a tender, and I understand that obviously that is the price. But when you're working with something that you cannot physically understand until you are doing it, like if the tender were for me to make a cake, I can make a cake. I know exactly how much that's going to cost because no one's going to come in and start throwing flour at me while I'm making the cake. I completely understand what you're saying, but I don't think that we should then not go with that company purely.
No, I'm not saying we shouldn't go with it, but I'm saying, we have to make it clear that that's the price.
And I think that's how when the tender is accepted, that's why we will be accepting the price that they have tendered, and that will be and that will be the end of it. Councillor Rippingale.
Yeah, I mean, on most builds that I've been involved with, it's really down to the individual contractor as to how they buffer their price.
That's right.
Some people obviously think, oh, I don't know about that. I'll add a couple £100 on top just in case.
Exactly.
That covers them.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly when I had my foundations dug, the quote was based on a standard dig. And the contractor did say to me, then if they have to go down that bit further, that'll be an extra cost to me. I didn't actually go with the cheapest quote. I actually went with the quote that I thought was the best. So it feels like Company A are just doing what the people who've done my, for instance, groundwork. They're just saying that I'm quoting based on what I know, but there is obviously a potential for something bigger. So it basically sort of goes to Paul's point and then goes against Paul's point. It really depends, unfortunately, on your point of view on that position. Point made.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy. I'm not unhappy to go with tender A, but I just want to make it clear that I personally think it's down to the contractor to make sure he builds in a margin of error himself if he has to.
Yeah.
For what he thinks might be problems, he potentially can't really say, well, here's my tender, and then start the job and turn around and say, oh, sorry, it's going to be another £1,000 because it's more difficult than I thought it was going to be. That's not how you tender, is it?
No.
Well, I would just make the point that obviously I personally would vote for Company A just purely because of the way they've dealt with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So a long time ago, Councillor Meehan and Councillor Eldred proposed and seconded Company A. Are we all in agreement? Kind of a vote of hands to show that we all agree with tendering for Company A. And Paul, can you? Yeah, agree. Brilliant.
I know I'm having trouble. I'm looking at a little phone at the moment, trying to have a meeting, but there you go.
So now that we've agreed that, the awarding company is Pickford's, who deals with churches and what have you. So Sarah will be emailing them later on in the week, no doubt.
Well,
obviously the next point, obviously moving back to the agenda, we've reviewed the tenders and we've appointed a contractor to undertake the works. We now need to agree the quote from Bulmer Brick and Tile Company. Just to remind councillors, I had numerous emails backwards and forwards with Bulmer of what was used for the previous two walls, and they have agreed that we have the right amount of bricks and what have you, and that quote comes to £3,543.
Chair, can I interrupt, please?
Yeah.
Is that quote delivered? Is that a delivered quote?
I believe it was, yes.
Right. Okay.
The only thing that the only issue that we're going to have to work out is where the bricks are delivered to, because obviously I've spoken to Roger, and he'll find room for them at Goulds for us to keep them in the meantime. But obviously we need to get them to the churchyard at some point for when construction happens. I doubt the bricks and the contractor arriving at the same time is going to coincide. So I'm not quite sure how if they have to go to Goulds, how we can get them down. I don't know if Roger has a.
Surely we could coordinate it so they do arrive together. Surely I would.
We can definitely try, but that's definitely something for later on. But yes, that quote and what we need to agree tonight is £3,543.
Can I just say that, sorry, just to be pedantic here, you really don't want that amount of bricks sitting in a churchyard unguarded. So to my mind, it would be better at Goulds, and it's just brought down as and when needed.
Yeah, I think something we'll have to speak to everyone involved, the church, the contractor, about how we do this going forward. So can I have a proposer to accept the quote for bricks, please? Councillor Agata and Councillor Rippingale. And are we all in agreement with that quote, please? Lovely, thank you.
Chair, can I just say one thing? I take it all this is subject to the resolution of the issue over the burial, yeah?
Resolution on the burial?
Well, I thought we
haven't got a resolution on the tonight on the agenda on how to proceed with that. The only we have it is under discussion under the memorial policy on how to go forward. Okay. So we will have to, Sarah, I believe we'll have to have a proper resolution on this at the next meeting. Perhaps we'll try and start wording the memorial policy and bring that to council as well. But obviously, you know, that is the council's wishes tonight. You know, obviously will be taken forward. So it's not a problem. Councillor Eldred?
Yeah, we did take a vote and we agreed that we would want a memorial wall, not an ashes wall. And then we proceeded to vote on the cost and everything else. I would presume, and I presumed, that meant that we wouldn't go forward with the building of it unless we took that memorial policy through. So writing to the person who's won the tender to say, yes, you've won it and everything else, I think that might be a little bit preempting, because there will be further discussions if that isn't an agreement with the church or what happens. That's and I can see where Paul's coming from. I was coming from the same view as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the way how conversations have happened, the agenda was published before the issue of how the walls would proceed going forward. But obviously the conversation had to happen tonight for councillors to understand, you know, the full picture. We've had to give you the full picture, and unfortunately you can't vote, or no, you can't vote and agree on a resolution going forward that isn't on the agenda. But we have discussed tonight the way forward that the parish council wishes to proceed with those walls, and at the next meeting we will just have to confirm that discussion that we've had tonight.
It's strange.
Unfortunately, when you have a situation that evolves as quickly and as fast or as last minute as things do, you miss the agenda. The agenda has to be published a certain amount of days before. So, you know, we could have had this discussion without memorial or ashes walls or however you wanted to proceed it, but that is not how we want to run this. We want all of you councillors to be able to discuss how this was going to go forward. You have had every bit of information that you, me, Paul, anyone that's had regarding this situation tonight. And unfortunately, the one thing that we cannot resolve to agree on officially tonight is whether it's a memorial wall or an ashes wall. But we've had a discussion under how we want to proceed going forward with the memorial policy, and all of that and everything that you have said. This is recorded, it's live streamed, everything will be taken into account. There will be no going back on, well, as long as councillors don't change their mind on what's been discussed tonight regarding the future of the walls. Councillor Spencer.
I think probably just from my point of view, all I'm looking for is an assurance that the contractor won't be appointed until we've got confirmation it can be a memorial wall. We wouldn't want them to proceed with the work and then find that the church isn't in agreement with us. Is that the case? Is that what other councillors were thinking?
That's exactly where we are.
How can I put this? The church came to us to ask on how we want to proceed with the walls going forward. So to put not a final point on it, if we go back to the church and say, right, that's it, you know, it doesn't have to have, we discussed it at parish council last night or whenever, and the consensus is of the council that we don't want ashes to, you know, the insistence of ashes being buried. That's what the parish council wants. That's what happens, because the walls and the plaques are ours to do with what we want to do.
But it's on church land.
Yeah.
I'm only thinking of that conversation that we had with Colin and Roman, where they were going to go away and have discussions themselves over it, weren't they? Yeah, that's my only concern.
And I've heard no more. I've emailed the church they know that we were discussing this tonight.
I think I agree with Councillor Spencer. We need to confirm with the church exactly what is acceptable to both sides. In the meantime, surely we can say to the contractor, we have chosen you, but hold fire for a moment because we just need to fine tune a few things, and then we'll give you the go ahead once it's all agreed. Can we do that?
I don't think we can do that. I think you either email them saying they've got the job or they haven't got the job. I don't think.
Unless they've sort of put a time frame of made time available to do the job. Is my thinking is possibly the other way around.
Well, unless the bricks are ordered, it's not happening this summer anyway.
No, exactly. Yeah. But I do agree. I think we need to clarify things. I think we just have to wait until the next council meeting and we know what the church are saying, and we all agree black and white, and then go from there.
Excuse me.
Or could
didn't
we
it
say
say at
everything
the
is
bottom that they couldn't start until the end of the summer anyway, on tender A, if I remember?
We've got a lead time of at least 18 to 22 weeks for the bricks anyway.
Yeah. So isn't that time enough to sort with the church?
I think so.
We need to place the order for the bricks, though, don't we?
We do, yes.
So if we place the order for the bricks, the time starts now. If we wait another 2 months before all this is clarified, the time starts then. So
yes.
then we're running into autumn.
And that kind of work can't happen. The lime mortar work needs to be done late summer.
And that's assuming the contractor can do it then. And
Yes.
he's not got other work booked in.
But they are aware of the situation, and we have asked for availability late summer going into autumn, knowing the lead time on the bricks. Councillor Spencer.
Obviously, we don't want to delay this unnecessarily. It's a great project and everything. Can we say that everything we've agreed tonight is agreed, just subject to getting something from the church that confirms it can be a memorial wall and ashes aren't necessarily required? And if we could get that pretty quickly, then it wouldn't necessarily need to delay anything.
Yeah. I mean, in conversations with the church, and I'll admit these are conversations with Roman, when he first brought this subject up about ashes being buried or not being ashes buried, his remarks to me were, whatever the parish council decides, we are happy either way.
We need that in writing, though.
Yeah.
We have to have it in writing for paper trail purposes. For paper trail purpose, for auditing purposes, it has to be in writing. We have to have some sort of contract on that.
Okay, we can get that sorted then.
Yep. I wouldn't be happy with it unless it was in writing.
Could it be a letter from you, Anne, that confirms we've had the meeting and this is what we're agreeable to, subject to them signing to confirm they agree the same?
Yep, that's fine by me too.
That shouldn't take too long to produce, should it?
No.
I'm totally happy to totally happy to do that.
And then
that's the quickest way, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you can proceed with everything else that we've agreed.
Are councillors all happy with that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And then just to confirm that the last or any outstanding payments we're going to take from the savings account. Yeah.
And if we get a grant, even better.
Yes, obviously we will try for grants and what have you, but yeah. Okay, if there's any other comments or questions about the ashes walls, if not, we'll draw a line under that for tonight. Sarah, have you got everything you need?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to environment and the grounds.
Yeah, Mark's been working by himself, obviously, doing a lot of hedge work and also litter picking over the last month. Nothing specific to report. The only problem I've got is our contractor who potentially can change the tyres on the mower to ones that will be more grippable. Unfortunately, he's been told by his supplier that the manufacturer is not doing them anymore. So we do seem to be in a bit of a position in regards to traction on wet ground. I've obviously got to have a think about what we can do going forward on that front. I'll obviously come back to the personnel committee stroke finance when I have something more tangible to go on. Obviously, I have spoken to Mark in regards to replacement personnel, and he is happy to assist us in choosing a replacement for Andy going forward. And obviously, we will advertise within the coming month to start that process off.
Yeah, we've got personnel on the 15th, haven't we, where we're going to discuss all that. Okay, Village Hall, Celia.
We have a Zoom meeting next Wednesday to discuss openings and hours and things like that. So that's all I can tell you so far.
Yeah, it's all a bit quiet really, isn't it? And
Yeah.
waiting for everything to open and what have you. So.
Yeah, very much.
I must admit, Tracy did text me about a lectern that has now been given to the Village Hall. So might have to get my gavel out as well and have some fun with that. That could be quite fun.
She went to somebody's to get some books, and they had a garage full of stuff, and that was one of the items she brought back as well. So that was absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant. Okay, telephone box. Any update, Paul? Paul?
Yep, here we go.
So
no, not really any further forward. I mean, we're ready really to paint. So once we get a decent into spring, get warm a bit, then we'll get an undercoat on and put a top coat on top. The only thing I would like just clarification on is what will be the final use. I mean, I've got somebody who can probably put all the bookshelves in for me as well, do the carpentry. So I mean, I can probably get this thing finished off by April, May, I would have thought. But obviously the eventual use also needs to be clarified now, I think, at this point, what we see it as eventually being. I mean, I personally would like to see it being a book exchange or something like that.
I think they're quite a good idea, actually, personally.
It's in the right place for a book exchange. Obviously, people go up to the Booking Hall Cafe and have coffee, and there's books there to look at and take away or whatever. It just seems to be a nice idea. I've seen one in Earl's Combe which looked particularly nice, which has been done exactly as that, decked out as a book exchange. Solar light, looks nice.
There's one in Felsted as well, and it has its own Twitter feed and everything as well,
Right.
which is quite funny.
I mean, I have got a very good supply of books as well. Half decent books as well. I got given to me from a Colchester bookshop, so we could pretty much start the thing off. I think Karen said she had some books. So, yeah, that's what I'd like. But I mean, obviously, that will have to be something that we decide on. But in terms of the book, the telephone box, apart from painting, is pretty much ready to go now. It's been reglazed and everything, so looks pretty good actually.
Good. We look forward to seeing it. Thanks, Paul. Nature Reserve.
One thing I know, I haven't been up there for a week or two, but I'll make a point this week of going to have another look. We are going to have to start thinking about the. I mean, I think the first job, there's two jobs that need doing really. Firstly, which I've started one, which is taking some of the reeds out of the bottom pond. But that'll have to pick up again. I'll have to start getting some weeds out, some of the reeds out, and obviously as we move into spring, I'll be looking for Mark's advice on this really about the spraying of the thistles. Those were the two jobs really that Roger wanted, saw as being a priority.
Yeah, Mark is already primed and ready with the spray. So it's just
Oh, is he?
yeah, he's already ready.
It's got to be a hand application, I suppose. When they emerge, is it? When they emerge,
Yeah. He knows when the best time to do it. I mean, it's going to be sort of like 3 or 4 weeks time, the end of March, he reckons.
Well, if we could, if you can keep me on top, I mean, is it something that I presume, and obviously it's spray we're talking about here, but I presume we could do it between, you know, we could get 2 or 3 of us up there and do it, yeah, with him. Or does he want to do it on his own? I don't know.
I think he wants to do it on his own, basically, because I've allowed him to get some signage to ward people off when he is doing it, because it is a fairly dangerous chemical.
Well, all the better then. Great idea. I mean, I'd be very happy if we let the experts do that. Yeah, I wasn't sure of the situation. So yeah, I'd be great if Mark could do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's fully primed and ready to go. It's just a matter of waiting for the appropriate time.
The other, so I can get on with the rigs. I'll have a crack at that, get the waders on, and get out there and have a go. But the other thing I was going to ask is, at some point, and I'll put something down in writing and distribute it around, and I'll have to talk to Roger about it as well. And that is possibility of doing some wildflowers down there. I know that was something that Mark was quite keen on as well. But you can obviously buy these very large pieces of turf, which are already sort of impregnated with wildflowers. And but you know, obviously I'll have to talk to Roger about that first and make sure he was sort of fitted in with his plans. But I think it could be, we could build some quite attractive little areas, I think.
Yeah.
With just wildflower sprays, if you see what I mean. That would, because it needs a little bit of how could I put it? It needs shaping up a little bit, doesn't it? Because it's basically a flat bit of ground at the moment. We need to build some interest there, if you see what I mean. So I'll talk to Roger about that, and then I'll let you know what sort of price we're talking about for the wildflowers. But they come in the turf already, so you just put the turf down, which is somewhat easier than trying to cultivate an area.
Okay, that's brilliant.
The only other thing I was going to report is I directed Mark last week to cut the small area within the trees that's currently where the bluebells were, just to encourage them to come on this year.
Whereabouts that, Trevor?
When you sort of walk through one end, you come out the other. About halfway along, there's Sylvia did point out during our walk, there was an area of bramble, and underneath there's quite a few bluebells. He's flattened that, so hopefully the bluebells will come out through now. Yeah,
I'll have another look at the rabbit situation as well, because I haven't actually got in touch with the rabbit contractor chap, but I have a feeling that's going to be quite an expensive job if we were going to eradicate all the rabbits down there. But
we're never going to eradicate them all.
Well, you're not, but you know, they obviously do a fair bit of damage down there. So anyway, that's where we are.
Brilliant, lovely, thank you. Moving on to finance and the March payments and receipts. Obviously, in your agenda, you can see all the payments that the Parish Council has this month. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Eldred, Councillor Rippingale, thank you. And we note the bank reconciliation as of the end of January is £44,571.47. As discussed with the Ashes wall, Sarah's kind of like give us an idea of what the end of year will look like. So it was about 40,000, obviously, once we've paid the remaining bills. And obviously we're getting near to audit time again and year end, which makes Sarah really happy. To consider and agree the notes for the meeting held on the 15th of February by the Finance Committee meeting. Have you all had a chance to have a read of those? Is there any questions or anything to note? If not, are we happy to propose and second? Councillor Meehan, Councillor Rippingale, thank you. Right, we need to appoint a fourth signatory for the online banking account. We have 3, but we prefer to have 4. It just makes life a little bit easier if somebody's missing, or when we all forget to do it as well. It's who's on hand to just go and log on. So yeah, is there anybody that's willing to stand? Councillor Spencer, are you happy to be put forward as a signatory?
Yeah, no problem.
It's fantastic. I propose Councillor Spencer, and can I have a seconder for Councillor Merton? Thank you. Okay, the next item is the 5-year business plan, which is something that has been taking me all kind of like the last few months to put together. It's been to finance several times and amended several times at finance before it was brought for you all to have a look at. Obviously, it's something that parish council should have. It's something just to project to see, you know, how we're doing against what our plans are, what our aspirations are, and obviously will just give us an idea on the future spending of the parish council. Does anyone have any comments? Are you happy to propose and second it? Councillors, what do you think?
A very good document. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you, Dokie. So Councillor Eldred proposes and Councillor Meehan seconds. So we'll get that onto the website in due course. The next item is the fixed asset register. That's the register of obviously all the parish council's assets that Paul has recently reviewed, obviously before our audit happens again this year. There's been a few additions to it with items that we've bought in the last year or so, but as we understand it, it is a complete register of all of our assets. Any other comments, Paul?
No, not really. I mean, it's a useful document, really. I mean, one of the key thing it raises really is risk of replacement, where our risks lie in terms of replacement of assets and our insurance risk of assets. So it's a very useful exercise from that point of view in covering off our risk. You know, you can see straight away where you could run into difficulties. So it's been a very useful exercise, I think, from that point of view. And I'm happy going through it that I think there's a couple of things I did. We were, well, one of them was the ashes wall for a start off, about who actually has the insurance risk of repair, you know, mending those if somebody vandalized them or something. So, but apart from that, yeah, I mean, it's highlighted all the assets and how they're covered and how any replacement is mitigated.
Brilliant. Thanks for all your hard work on that register, Paul. So I'm happy to propose. Can I have a seconder for the asset register? Councillor Meehan, thank you. Okay, moving on to the meeting platform. Obviously, we've exhausted all ways of trying to have the options that are free to us for meeting platforms. And I think, you know, yes, we've tried it and we need to like move on and purchase something different. This is also looking forward to when there's a possibility of hybrid meetings going on. So we just know that we need something probably a little bit more stable, a little bit more flexible, that people know and works going forward. Tom's been doing some research on the differences between the two different platforms, so I'll let him tell us about that. And you're muted, Tom. Councillor Meehan?
I agree with Tom in terms of user friendliness. I've not used Teams, but I know of a lot of people that have, and I think he's right. If hybrid meetings do become a thing, etc., you are more likely to have a lot more people who may not have the ability and or want to have to download an app to make it easier for them. Therefore, I think we should go with Teams if it's easy, and then it's kind of how we've been working now with this, where you can email out a link, all they have to do is click on it, it comes up, job done. No sort of faffing with passwords, etc., and things like that. So yes, I agree with Tom. I think we should go with Teams.
Councillor Rippingale?
I exist in a world where both are relevant, and personally, I don't see much difference between them. I mean, our company is a Zoom company, and they have got obviously very, very skillful at using Zoom, but that's just obviously our company. From the point of view of generality, Teams, like I say, is available to more people, so I have no real view either way personally.
I must admit, I feel completely the same. I have no view either way, because I just think either or works, and hence why we brought it to full council for you know, to have the democracy of everyone making the decision. Councillor Merton?
Well, I use Zoom, and it's you don't always have to put a password in, but it depends on what application you have. If I use my tablet, then I sometimes have to put a password in, sometimes I don't. So you know, whatever's easiest, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, click and connect is really what we want.
Councillor Picton?
Any difference in regards to the amount of internet capability you need to have for either? Or only reason I ask is I've used both with my work environment and also with homeschooling, and I've actually found that Teams has been slightly more unstable on a slightly lesser internet connection than the Zoom. So that would be my only query, would be if there's a difference in that, or if I've just been highly unlucky with the ones that I've used.
Chair, just for a personal,
Yes.
point of view, I'm obviously the one that seems to have most of the issues. Partly that's probably because I use a Chromebook, I don't know, rather than a laptop or Windows. Sorry, a Microsoft thing. I do use Zoom, and I like Zoom. I think it's very good. I might have some trouble with Teams. I don't know, on a Chromebook. I don't know. I have lots of trouble with 3CX. I know that.
Councillor Eldred?
Just from putting communications hat on, everybody naturally calls it Zoom now. It's known as Zoom meetings and everything else. We're into that thing where everybody has a Hoover, nobody has a vacuum cleaner, do they? It's all one of those kind of situations. I think Zoom's quite acceptable. I've used both. I've got no particular preference, although Zoom always seems to work for me.
Can I just say that if it works for Paul, if Zoom works for Paul better, then why don't we go for Zoom?
I think it's an important thing. I mean, Paul does seem to be the person that has had the most issues. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if Tom could just clarify the cost that there will be to the council, just for anybody that's not already aware of a rough sort of annual cost that you can expect, please.
Okay. Councillor Meehan?
If that is the case, then if everyone is generally saying we have absolutely no preference, should we go with the person who does have a preference and who has the most issues with everything, in which Paul uses Zoom regularly? Like we all said, everyone that's said they've used both has said they have no preference. So therefore,
that's what I think.
Just if we go with Zoom, we know that Paul, who is a rather major part of the meeting, we'll be able to get on, and like I said, I'm sure everyone here has used it, and yeah.
Okay, I will propose that we purchase a Zoom, what's the word I want?
Zoom license.
Zoom license, then. And can I have a seconder, please?
I second it.
Councillor Merton, and everyone agree? Paul, you're happy with that?
Yes, is the word you're looking for.
Okie dokie. So yeah, Tom, can you sort that license out for us? And I think Tom will put it onto our bill next month. He'll sort it for us. So hopefully this will be our last one on 3CX.
I'm back.
We've agreed Zoom. Is that all right?
That's good. Yeah.
Good.
You can go back to sleep now.
Okay, moving on to meetings and training. I attended the meeting last Thursday about the setting up of BALC, the Braintree Association of Local Councils. It was all a very positive meeting. All the parish councils that attended were very happy to proceed. The bank accounts have been found with some money in, so there's some money to get the association up and running again, whilst paying a clerk to administer. So what's going to happen now is they're going to have an AGM probably on the 15th of April to formally get BALC up and running. So we are a voice in the Braintree area. Braintree district is a massive district with 52 councils. So again, there will be hybrid Zoom meetings. Obviously, because somebody out in Tilbury, Clare, might not want to get to Braintree for a meeting or something. So all very positive going forward, looking at having some guest speakers, because obviously as an association, you're going to get more people come to talk to association rather than individual parish councils. So subscriptions were talked about, probably going to be done on a parish size, but probably only between £20 and £40 per annum. So I think it's a very positive thing for the area to have that voice back in the area again. As I mentioned, we've got personnel on the 15th. Many other meetings. who's got training? Mike, you've got your training soon, haven't you?
Training next week and the week after. I'm also attending a Zoom meeting on the A12 development and what's occurring as far as that's concerned, which is Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to attend that, but I'm now back at work, so.
It's all right. I'll go and find out. It's literally what's happening with the A12 from Chelmsford to Colchester, but it does mention the A120 quite a bit, so there might be something come out of it. But I'll let people know.
Brilliant. Any other meetings attended? Don't think there is. Okay, we now need to move to the private session. So we need to agree the exclusion of the public and the press for the consideration of the following items for the reasons set out in Part 1 of the Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act of 1972. Yes.
Sorry, Chair. Before you do that, could I just interrupt and ask if you could extend the meeting to complete the business on the agenda, as you need to exclude me for some time, and I don't want you to go past 10 o'clock without me being here.
Okay. So first, can I have an agreement? So I apologise wholeheartedly. This is happening for the second time in the month that we're going to have to extend the meeting, but obviously we've had a lot to discuss. So can I have an agreement to extend the meeting? Thank you, Councillor Rippingale and Councillor Eldred. And then can I have a proposer and a seconder to agree the exclusion of the public, please? Councillor Agata and Councillor Meehan. Thank you. So obviously we will suspend.
Good night, madam.
Yes. Good night, Councillor Butland and Councillor Hughes, and thank you for attending tonight.
Good night.
Thank you.
And obviously we will. but I think
You never know.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, thank you. That's our private session over and done with. Thank you ever so much for everyone for your patience. Apologies again for another late meeting, but we've had a lot to discuss tonight, and we've got a lot of ground covered. So very, very pleasing. Thank you. The next Parish Council meeting is on Tuesday, the 6th of April. And please have any items for the agenda to the clerk by the 25th of March at the latest. And I will close the meeting at 10:12 p.m.
Thank you very much.
And
Good
thank
night.
you ever so much for attending. Thanks all.
Bye.
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 Good night.
Night.
Night, 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 night.